Welcome to Max Premieres. While Hollywood keeps feeding us plastic remakes, there are projects in the shadows that actually make you want to go to the cinema. Today, I'm bringing you 15 fresh releases, from indie horror to the Japanese Godzilla attacking New York for the first time. We're going from worst to best based on my personal and honest take. If something didn't work for me, I'll say it straight. And if something surprised me, I'll say that too. If you find that useful, it would help me a lot if you left a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for your support. Number 15, Badland Rising. Dave works construction in Queensland, an ordinary man, an ordinary shift, a drive home that should be completely unremarkable. But he accidentally stumbles into the aftermath of a criminal gang's robbery, picks up a bag full of money without fully understanding what he's just done, and from that moment, a 19-hour survival run begins across the desert landscapes of the Australian interior. The feel the trailer conveys sits somewhere between a classic road thriller and a human manhunt in the vein of Spielberg's Duel, with that raw Australian earthiness that Hollywood cinema rarely manages to reproduce convincingly. This isn't a film looking to be important, just effective and honest about what it offers. For viewers who enjoy unpretentious action thrillers that know exactly what they are and don't try to be anything else, there's enough here to justify a night in front of the screen. The actual result depends entirely on execution. Number 14, The Last Viking. Director Anders Thomas Jensen, the man behind Many a Chicken and Riders of Justice, returns with a new black comedy and reunites Mads Mikkelsen with Nikolaj Lykas once more. Anchor walks out of prison after 15 years for a robbery and discovers that his brother Manfred, who was supposed to guard the hidden money the whole time, developed dissociative disorder and completely forgot where he buried it. The film premiered out of competition in Venice to very divided reviews. Some see it as the story of two broken people who together managed to be slightly less broken. Others feel Jensen pushed the absurdity and violence too far this time without finding the balance his best work achieves. Mikkelsen plays a man who jumps from moving cars, steals neighbors' dogs, and threatens to stab himself with a fondue fork, and it's still treated as a completely serious role. The result is uneven, but contains moments only. Jensen knows how to build. Number 13, Resident Evil. Zach Kreger, director of Barbarian, wrote an original screenplay for this franchise installment without watching any of the previous films. His protagonist isn't Leon Kennedy or Jill Valentine, it's Brian, a medical supplies delivery driver who ends up in Raccoon City on the worst possible night with no special agent skills whatsoever. He doesn't understand what's happening, has no combat weaponry, and the film unfolds parallel to the events of the second game, but viewed from the periphery of someone who has no business being there. The CinemaCon trailer looks convincing, and Kreger is clearly genuinely interested in the weird creature stuff. The mutants look unlike anything in the previous films, with six-legged creatures assembled from parts of different bodies. The decision to bet on a completely new perspective, exterior to the franchise's classic protagonists, is exactly the right move to revitalize something that had become narratively exhausted. Number 12, Dutton Ranch. Beth and Rip Willer finally have their own series, a direct continuation of Yellowstone that fans had been waiting for since the main show ended. They move to South Texas, buy 7,000 acres, and get a chance to start a new life away from everything that haunted them. But in the first days on the new property, Rip finds a body, and a rival played by Annette Bening is already waiting a woman willing to destroy anything in her path. Taylor Sheridan is here as a producer, but not as showrunner. Chad Feehan, who previously worked on Loman Base, is running the show. Without Sheridan at the wheel, the distinctive rhythm of his scripts can easily get lost, and the episodes risk becoming beautiful Texas scenery with a fight at the end. Real potential is here, but there are clear reasons to be cautious about expectations before seeing how it functions without its principal creator. Number 11, The Odyssey. Christopher Nolan's first major project after Oppenheimer, and once again he chose something that can hardly be called modest. Homer's Odyssey, a 3,000-year-old poem in the hands of a director who considers cinema a religion, and the movie theater a sacred temple where the experience is irreplaceable. Matt Damon plays Odysseus, a man who has spent so long away from home that on the shore of Calypso's island, he can no longer clearly remember whether he had a wife or what his son's name was. Tom Holland is Telemachus, hearing the full story of the Trojan War while his father tries to find his way home. Nolan shot the film entirely on IMAX cameras, the first director in history to achieve this with a full production of this scale. The CinemaCon trailer caused a sensation. The Trojan Horse as a massive action sequence, nocturnal naval battles, Pattinson as Antinius, Charlize Theron as Calypso. The expectation is maximal and completely justified. Number 9. Jackass, Best and Last. 25 years have passed since the show premiered on MTV, and Johnny Knoxville says this will be the last time, definitively. The 5th film in the series looks more like an emotional retrospective than a traditional destruction-focused Jackass. Best and Last mixes new material with the greatest hits of the past, never-before-seen footage, and that strange, uncomfortable sentimentality you wouldn't expect from people who spent their entire careers voluntarily hurting themselves on camera. Knoxville admitted that after Jackass Forever, he ended up with broken ribs, an injured wrist, a concussion, and a brain hematoma, and that physically he simply cannot do what he used to do without real risk. New stunts are still here, including something called a robotic rectal exam that nobody asked for but inevitably exists. The whole film feels like a farewell from people who know their time is up and want to leave exactly on their own terms. Number 8. Star City. Apple TV Plus takes the For All Mankind universe and shifts the camera to the Soviet side of the alternate space race. Star City refers to the real city of stars near Moscow, where Soviet cosmonauts were trained using very different techniques and methods. The series shows this alternate history from the inside, with cosmonauts, engineers, and officials integrated into the space program as main characters. It's not a story about how the Soviets won the race. It's about the price of that victory and what was happening behind the Iron Curtain that nobody on the other side ever knew about. The House of the Dragon actress plays the program's chief designer, and that casting makes clear the creators have no interest in cartoonish Soviet villains or simple Cold War antagonists. 8 episodes. Paranoia as the primary atmosphere, and Ronald D. Moore as one of the creators, the same man who conceived the original For All Mankind series. If you've watched that show, you already understand why this deserves full attention. Number 7. Evil Dead Burn. The Evil Dead franchise changes directors again and bets once more on a fully standalone story with no obligatory connections to what came before. This time it's French director Sebastian Vanek, known for the spider horror film Infested. Sam Raimi chose him personally, and the decision makes sense. Vanek knows how to work with body horror and build tension in confined spaces. The story follows a woman who arrives at her late husband's family's isolated house after his death, finds the Necronomicon, and the family reunion becomes exactly what it inevitably becomes when that book appears. The trailer looks brutal in exactly the right way. There are bites, there's a long, continuous shot in the middle of complete chaos, and it's clear the director is trying to bring his own visual and narrative identity rather than simply repeating the established formula. Evil Dead Rise proved the franchise can stay relevant with new voices. Number 6. Verity. After Colleen Hoover's It Ends With Us grossed over $340 million at the box office, adaptations of her books became an unstoppable machine. Verity is a different kind of beast, not romance, but a psychological thriller with a dark, morally complicated story that the original novel handles with real intelligence. Writer Lowen Ashley is hired to complete a book series for the famous novelist Verity Crawford, who can no longer write following an accident. Lowen moves into the Crawford family home, falls for the husband, and finds a manuscript that could mean anything from a dark confession to a precisely calculated trap. Dakota Johnson and Anne Hathaway facing off is the right casting, because both characters need to read as simultaneously convincing and unreliable. The question the trailer leaves unanswered is whether the adaptation will have the stomach to maintain the moral ambiguity that makes the source novel so effective. Number 5. Godzilla Minus Zero. Godzilla Minus One became the first Asian film to win the Oscar for Best Visual Effects on a budget Hollywood blockbusters would spend on marketing alone. The sequel carries a weight of expectation that could crush any production not fully prepared for it. Takashi Yamazaki returns as director, screenwriter, and VFX supervisor, understanding perfectly that emotional tone is as important as the monster's scale on screen. The story continues 2 years after the first film's events. Shikishima's family is back at the center, and so is that desperation, which, according to Yamazaki himself, will run even deeper and more devastating than before. The CinemaCon trailer ends with Godzilla advancing on the Statue of Liberty for the first time in decades. The Japanese Godzilla attacks New York City. It's a decision that expands the scale without losing the human story that made the first film so powerful. The signs are very promising. Number 4. The death of Robin Hood. Hugh Jackman as Robin Hood isn't an obvious choice, and that's precisely what makes it genuinely interesting. A24 handles a story about the legendary outlaw's final days. Wounded after a battle that was supposed to be his last, Robin falls into the hands of a mysterious woman who offers him something resembling salvation. Director Michael Sarnowski, who made Pig with Nicolas Cage and A Quiet Place Day. One knows how to work with silence, solitude, and characters who have nowhere left to go. Jodie Comer and Bill Skarsgård appear in significant supporting roles. Filming took place in Northern Ireland. This clearly isn't a blockbuster or another grandiose reimagining of the Sherwood legend. The Taron Egerton film already showed where that road leads. From what it appears to be, this will be an intimate, dark, and deeply personal work about what remains of a man when the legend is completely over and only the real person behind it is left. Number 3. Pitfall. The concept is brutally simple and effective. A boy falls into a trap with stakes at the bottom, pierces his leg, and can't get out. While he lies trapped down there, someone starts hunting his friends on the surface one by one without pause. This James Condolik indie horror went through Screamfest last autumn to quite intense reactions from audiences. Critics compared it to Buried for the claustrophobic survival aspect and to Friday the 13th for the systematic forest killings. Former UFC champion Randy Couture plays the hunter, a silent archer who has spent decades setting traps in those woods. One critic wrote that he's like Michael Myers with a bow and arrows, which is exactly the kind of description that either completely sells you on the film or tells you it isn't for you. Small budget, Canadian crew, minimal visual effects. But sometimes those are precisely the films that work best because they have nowhere to hide behind money. Number 2. Signal 1. A science fiction thriller about first contact with an extraterrestrial intelligence is a genre that's very hard to do well and nearly impossible to make genuinely memorable for the average viewer. A young scientist enters the classified project of a charismatic tech billionaire played by Dennis Quaid, who clearly knows what he's doing in this specific type of role. The machine they've built to communicate with an alien mind actually works in ways nobody on the team expected could happen. Contact is established. Then something goes terribly wrong on a scale that threatens all of humanity with no apparent solution. Isabel May, Josh Hutcherson, and David Thewlis form a reasonably solid cast for a lower-budget project of this kind. The problem is that the film arrived quietly on VOD with no festival buzz preceding it. That could mean a modest, honest science fiction film with no excessive ambitions, or it could mean the studio simply didn't know how to sell it. The concept deserves a real chance. Number 1. Reckless. Scott Adkins tries his hand at Guy Ritchie-style genre comedy again, and based on early reviews, the result is quite uneven. His character Devin walks out of prison after being framed for a robbery and tries to recover his share of the money, while the police and the real criminals pursue him simultaneously from different directions. Screenwriter Stu Small wrote both Accident Man films and The Collector, so the team knows how to work together. But according to audience reviews, the problem isn't the actor or the central concept, it's the execution. The animated inserts feel annoying rather than adding character. The humor only lands occasionally, and the fights, which are the main reason many people seek out these films, are surprisingly underutilized. A project that wanted to be a kind of British Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, but had neither the right director nor the budget to actually pull it off. And that's all for today. I hope the list gave you more than one reason to keep an eye on the next few months. If you liked this video, don't forget to leave your like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss our upcoming videos. See you soon. Thanks for watching.